by the way, our topic today is how can we provide our technicians a $100,000 yearly pay package? And, this is really meant to be an idea starter. I understand, I truly do, that a living wage is dependent on cost of living, competence, capabilities of a profitable shop, and that includes a benefit package. So if we can think out loud, what I want this academy today to consider is what considerations do we need to make, not only to the industry, for ourselves and in our own businesses, and with all the available talent that's out there. And one of the reasons we talk about this is, poaching is so real. We're losing our techs for many reasons, and a bunch of them is pay. Hey, I want to thank Jasper Engines and Transmissions for their continuous support of the Town Hall Academy. Do you know the Jasper story? Well, Jasper has over 2,000 associates, 3 manufacturing facilities, 40 jobs all across the country. They're all working hard to produce, transport, and deliver to you the perfect product. That's what they do best, keep customers happy, so you can. Thank you, Jasper, for your support. Wow, look who I have here, some real luminaries. Let me see if our, yes, he did join us. Fabulous. Seth, I'm bringing you in. We have Jerry Kazaya from the Auto Shop in Plano, Texas. Hey, Jerry. Frank Scandura from Frank's European in Las Vegas. Matt Fonslow, shop manager, lead diagnostician from Riverside Automotive in Red Wing, Minnesota. And Seth Thorson. Hey, Seth, Eurotech Auto Service and LMB. I can say, why do I always struggle every time I say that, Seth? LMV Bavarian, BMW Tech Support Company in New Brighton, Minnesota. How are you, Seth?
Doing all right.
Good. Glad to have you here. Hey, guys. I so appreciate you coming here. Frank, I really want to I want to open this whole idea up on how we can provide our technicians a $100,000 yearly pay package by asking you, does it start with you, the shop owner?
Absolutely. Absolutely it does, because I think we make the mistake of asking in the interview process, what were you making before? I think I can afford that. Or, oh good, I can give you $1 or $2 more, maybe entice you. And that's a huge problem. So it does start with us. We need to look at what are people actually worth? What team members are we looking to attract? Because, if we hire an ATEC for 25 bucks an hour, you're going to get what you pay for. If I hire an ATEC for 50 bucks an hour, I have the right to a higher expectation.
Agree, Jerry?
Well, of course. And if they don't meet your expectation, that's when you need to have a different conversation. But the truth of it is, we've got our own issues with the industry. We don't charge enough. Unfortunately, the majority of the shop owners out there never went to business school, right? They went to AC Delco training, or they went to Ford training, or they went to training of some vehicle. But we have to understand that what we do is a business, and you have to treat it like a business. And if you're not, unfortunately, those shops are closing down quicker and quicker these days. So I think the problem, I agree, it starts with us.
Frank, Jerry, you guys are coaches. Why, when you start taking on a client, why are they undervaluing themselves in what they charge?
Fear. They're afraid they're going to lose customers, afraid that, nobody's going to come in, not understanding the true value of the services they offer and what they do.
And I'll go even one step further, because they don't understand business and they don't understand the marketing. The only way that they know how to get a new customer is to lower the price, be the cheapest price out there. And I'll tell you, the only people that win in the race to the bottom are bottom feeders.
Yeah.
And you cannot run a successful business, in my opinion. Now, this is just my opinion, right? I've owned this company for 38 years. And so my opinion is you cannot run a successful business. You cannot pay your employees properly. You cannot give your customers great customer service and take care of warranty issues if you're racing to the bottom. You've got to have cash flow. You have to have gross profit. You have to understand what your KPIs are. You have to learn business to run a business. Everybody, listen, fixing cars is the smallest part of the deal anymore. I mean, I hate to say that, but the reality of it is fixing the car right the first time is minimum entry into this field today.
Minimum expectation from the customer.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Everybody should be giving first time repair is right. So if you want to capture customer, how do you get a bigger piece of the pie? In my opinion, you give great customer service, you take care of the customer, you do the simple things like send out monthly newsletters, you've got to maintain top of mind awareness and absolutely take care of the customer and their car when they're there.
Okay, I want to stop for a moment and talk just for a second about last week's Town Hall Academy. It was about employee loyalty, how to grow and build employee loyalty. The big takeaway for me, doesn't happen overnight.
No, you're right.
Right,
No.
guys, Seth, and you got to start somewhere. So when you look at the successful guys, well, wow, how'd you get there? How did you get to do all these things right? And then you say confession, right? You say, man, I made a ton of mistakes to get here, right, Seth?
Oh yeah. I mean, there's tons of things along the way you learn and things you wish you did differently, and it's always a growing process. And getting guys on board and in your culture and getting everybody on board to do the right things definitely makes it easier to keep employees and hire the right employees. We're currently looking for a tech because we did lose one, and there are not a lot out there, and we are offering close to that number that the techs want. And
In a package, right, Seth? In a package.
Mhm.
And why did you lose your tech?
Unfortunately, he made a few too many mistakes, and
Okay.
I won't go into it, but yeah, he's no
Okay.
longer.
All right. But it was your choice.
He fired himself.
Okay.
Yeah.
He fired himself. Yep.
Matt, you're a shop manager. I know recently you lost someone. Give me the how you're still reeling from the loss of that individual.
Well, because he's proving to be very difficult to replace. He was an R&R guy, very, very good at taking things apart, putting them back together the right way. He really cared about what he was doing. That's one of the really brutal things to replace, is to find somebody that shows up and actually cares about the quality of product they're providing. And he got sniped from a much larger company, like a big maintenance type company. And they started him out about $12 an hour more than what we were paying, and full benefits. And they gave him a company vehicle, all company tools. There's really no cost to him to do that job. And they start paying him the second he sits down in that pickup and heads towards the job site. He's putting in some major hours right now, but it's brutal. And that's I think what I'm hearing from everybody, and I could be wrong, and most likely I'm wrong, is that we're using really bad barometers. We're using really bad reference points. The reference points are the surrounding competition, and that, as in other shops, and not these other entities that need the same, no, really, honestly, not the same skill set. They need less skills than what most of our people have.
Good point.
Our techs have a really vast skill set. It really is. And these other entities are going to take them to maximize one small portion of that skill set and compensate them much, much better than the vast, vast, vast majority of shops out there right now.
I would edit that part out in case any techs are listening.
Sorry.
We don't edit anything here.
Okay, I know.
The other thing I heard too, and I don't think it's terribly important, but what I'm hearing too is we need to rebuild or add levels to the hierarchy, right? Because a hierarchy is what kind of creates value. The difference between service providers or product developers is the difference between Seth's shop and a shop that competes with him. The difference is, what does Seth provide versus that other shop? And that starts to create a hierarchy, and therefore the value difference between Seth's shop and the other shop. And it's trying to get the whole entire hierarchy to start moving up, as well as market to the client this hierarchy, why it exists, and why in the long run you're saving money, even though that invoice might seem higher than the other shop.
I think Matt just broke the code here. Let me chime in. You guys say, well, how do I set my labor rate? What's the guy down the street charging? How do I set what I'm paying my guys? What's the guy down the street paying?
There's shops up and down my streets that are $40 an hour less than me. So
in
Right.
labor rate?
Yep.
In labor rate.
Same
And
here.
do you have the highest payroll or the highest salary you would think per guy, per tech?
I would say mine's up there. Yeah. I mean, Matt's been to my shop a couple times or once or twice now. So
Yeah, it's a couple times now. Yeah.
Yeah, but just being at your shop doesn't tell us what's, under the covers, and that would be that that you have a higher end payroll.
I would argue it tells a lot, though. You know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
arguably, even if his payroll was somewhat similar, you can tell with the built-in tool cases and all the tools the shop provides that already the tech is spending less of their personal finances to buy the tools they need to do the job they were hired for. So immediately, Seth's taking what he does seriously.
And I think it sets a tone for, and Carmen, you've been to my shop, it sets a tone for the investment I make, customer facing. You hope I make that investment employee facing, right? And I think it speaks a lot about what we're willing to do and the image we're trying to portray. Like Seth, we're a lot more than the guys around us because that's not my competition. And I pay more than the dealer. And, we'll probably get into some of the other benefits later. So it's just a matter of not being afraid. Recently we discovered we were spending a lot of time with older cars, 95 and older. It takes more time to look up information. The guys are younger. They're turning to me more for my memory banks, which, I'm getting old. Don't count on my memory. So we've decided we're going to pay the guys $10 an hour more for working on those cars. And we're charging the customers a lot more. We're charging $190 an hour for working on 95 and older cars. And I swear that I thought, that's fine. Nobody will bring them in. It's not the case. People want their cars fixed. These are 24-year-old cars. So if they're willing to pay that much to get an old car fixed, what are they willing to pay to get a new car fixed the right way, the first time?
Well, let's talk about that because that's beautiful. Thank you so much. I think, in my opinion, that we don't charge enough. We have to, as shop owners, we need to rate. It starts with us. Okay. Unfortunately, we are independent shop owners. Independent is, there's great parts to that, but darn it, the worst part is we are independent and, I'm not doing it your way because it's my way, right? I mean, there's a lot of that mentality still out there. And unfortunately, they don't understand. Look, we've got a Tesla shop here. It's about 6 miles from my business. They get $250 an hour to do an alignment on a Tesla.
Wow.
Okay, $250 an hour is their shop rate. Now, I don't know about you, but if they're able to get it, there's just as much computing in a Cadillac Escalade than there is in the Tesla. Okay, 130 some processors last time I checked. Our guys that work on these cars need to be compensated, and one of the big problems, in my opinion, is shop owners do not charge a sufficient labor rate to be able to properly compensate the technicians. And the technicians now are out there still doing what, I don't know, around here they call it moonlighting, right? Side work. And, if a customer can get a brake job done for $60 labor, why in the world is he going to come into your shop and pay $130 labor or whatever your number is for a hang and turn? Okay. Human nature is they're going to go and get a cheap deal. Well, first of all, that's not my customer, but more importantly, what's the technician doing to the industry? I've never seen a dentist say, hey, come by my house this weekend and I'll put a root canal in for you. Right? I've never seen an attorney say, listen, if you come by my house Friday night, bring me a couple beers, I'll do your will. I mean, why are we allowing this to happen in our industry? I just don't. I scratch my head every year and think it's got to get better, right?
listen, and here's what I've discovered very recently. Most technicians cannot see past their next paycheck.
Yeah. Yep.
They just can't see past it. I don't understand why. And I've talked to my guys about that too. I lost an ATEC not long ago. We normally run 50 to 75 hours a day overbooked every day.
Beautiful.
Far more work. I got a super rock star sales team. They can sell it all. I just don't have enough guys to get it out. We're working on that. That's my problem. I get it. But we had an unusual 2 weeks in February where the hours dropped down and got a little quiet. 2 weeks. First 2 weeks of February. And one of my guys quit because his bottom line was affected.
For 2 weeks.
For 2 weeks.
You're right.
Past his, so he ends up in a shop with no health insurance, no paid holidays, no paid vacation. Okay.
Techs are like that, Frank, and I 100% agree. I've seen it a lot. One of the things we do now, I use a program that actually shows employees total compensation with all company benefits. As soon as they log in, that's where they onboard, and they log into that monthly, and it updates their total compensation package in a bar graph with compensation pay and other compensation. That's really helped show my techs what they're worth.
Awesome.
And as Matt alluded to, just bringing techs into my shop and talking to them and saying, look, it's not just the number I'm paying you. If you're spending 20 grand or 10 grand or 5 grand, 3 grand, whatever it is less per year on tools, because I provide everything, that makes a difference in most of these techs. And that's, we provide the built-in boxes. We have, as Matt's seen in the shop, every imaginable factory tool, including a factory lift to pull drivetrains down. I mean, we have everything you could imagine a tech would want. And we show them that, and we talk to them, look, you may get an offer that's $2,000 more, but you're going to spend $4,000 on tools. It doesn't add up. And also with the new tax laws, we make sure we inform them that you don't get the write-off on your tools.
No. It's called an invisible paycheck. And I know that you could probably go into Google and type in why am I having such a tough time saying that? Invisible paycheck. And really, literally, you can list all, if you're, whatever your contribution is. I mean, I love the fact, Seth, that your software has it built in, but for a lot of shop owners that don't have that level of sophistication, once a quarter, you can create an invisible paycheck for your each individual and let them see. Even your FICA contribution should be considered, because that's money that you're paying to enforce Social Security. It's all part of the benefits program. So guys, it's about making over. I mean, let's face the reality. You can't pay if you don't have, so you got to make over your company, and it's going to take some time to do it. But we've got to start now, because it's only going to get worse. How many 10 years ago, Matt, we weren't worrying about people poaching our techs, and today it's more prevalent than ever.
I think there was warnings.
Yeah.
I mean, there's discussions about a skill gap and all that. We've had the warnings, and there was talk about it, technician deficiency or lack of quality or qualified quality, I guess, too. Technicians, but it was largely ignored because it wasn't affecting most shops, especially the small shops, maybe the mom and pop shops. Now it is, and it's hitting hard. And instead of being proactive early, now we're forced to be reactive, and that's usually a bad thing.
So everybody talks about got to raise the labor rate. You said it earlier, Frank. It's fear. Can't do it. There's a lot of reasons why. Let's talk about this whole makeover thing. If we were gonna work toward getting the salaries of our people up, what would we start to do first from the shop owners here? Give me what you would think would be the first 3 things.
I think Jerry kicked it off pretty good by saying we have to learn to run our businesses like a business. It's not a hobby shop. It's not a job. It's a business. And one of my breakthroughs a few years ago is when my coach, Jim Murphy, said, you have to look at your business as an entity. What does this entity do for you as part of your portfolio, so to speak? And then it really helped me take my emotion out of it and stop being as twisted up as I am. I'm Sicilian, so I'm usually twisted up pretty good all the time. But it's an entity. and I need to treat it as such. I have to have that 30,000-foot view. Just this morning, I'm realizing that not everybody knows who does what. So I've got one person talking to a service advisor about another service advisor didn't do something right on paperwork. Well, that wasn't the right person to go to. So, I have to now lay out probably a 92-page document. This person is responsible for A, B, C, and D. So we have to start with truly treating this like a business. How do you run your business? And I'll tell you what, one of the most difficult transitions for a technician is to write service. The second most difficult to be a business owner.
Yep. All I can do is agree. The reality of it is, first of all, when you're talking emotions, I have a little bar that I use and I share with people. I said, the reality of it is that you have intelligence on one side and emotions on the other. And when emotions go up, where does the intelligence go? Right? Intelligence always goes down. This is the teeter-totter of life. And, they make books about it. They make movies about it. You've got to be able to take your emotions out of the business. As soon as you can do that, now you're talking about something special. Okay. And I have to say, Frank, you're spot on. You have to look at your business like it's a separate entity. My business is separate from me. And my business, there are certain guidelines, there are certain things that I absolutely demand from my company. And I'll tell you, I run a pretty interesting shop. It's a large store. We're 35,000 square feet.
Wow.
And I took October off. My wife and I spent it in France. It was a beautiful experience. I got one email a week just asking me to transfer enough funds. Here's how much payroll was. Make sure the funds were handled. Other than that, I didn't get a phone call. I didn't get an email. No, I won't say there were no issues, but my team runs it enough that I don't have to be here. So I think we have our systems fairly dialed in. And unfortunately, or fortunately, I realize that it is an ongoing chore. It's an ongoing task to always be tweaking your standard operating procedures. You're always tweaking your how-to-do list. Frank, in your case, I think you may want to create a very simple org chart instead of a 92-page document.
I just started that this morning. I went to the Lucid Chart, which is a free program on Google, and I've started my org chart this morning. And I
Good
have
for you.
with roles and responsibilities added to it. Yes, sir.
Perfect.
Yeah, we have a great org chart for that as well, and I would agree. And to get to the numbers though, if we're going to talk about technician compensation, to get to the numbers, the reality is it's simple math. What do I need to pay my top writers? What do I need to pay my service writers? And then back that into where I need to charge.
Yep.
And and if I can't make that business proposition work in my area, then I need to evaluate my procedures and if that's a valuable business plan. But I really need to take the numbers and put it to paper and say, this is what I need to pay people. And if I can't do that in my market, then I need to be in a different market, or I need to reevaluate if I even should be in that market.
Exactly.
Good.
And you have to understand that what you have, you're not an auto mechanic. You're not a guy that fixes cars. Basically, I look at my business as I am a factory. And we have the raw materials coming in on one side, and that's broken cars, replacement parts, knowledge, and time. And on the other end at the far end of the deal, when the vehicle is done, our finished product is a happy customer, right? And so what do we have?
Deming-esque view.
Is that good or bad for you? I don't know.
No, a very W. Edwards Deming. That's a very Deming-esque view of your shop. That's very cool.
And if we're not operating it at the efficiency, we need to find out where the bottleneck is and fix that bottleneck. We need to make sure our efficiency of the factory is doing what it's supposed to be doing. And if you can do that, I say, first off, hats off to you, right? Kudos, make it happen. And and if not, call me. I'll help you do it.
I love the idea, excuse me, Matt, about the entity, Jerry, because that's exactly kind of how you described being in France. It was that the entity was living on its own.
It has to.
I know.
Because at some point, listen. Okay, so here's a little. The rest of the story, right? Us old guys, we know what that means.
Yeah.
So my dad opened up his business in 1946. He was the first automatic transmission shop in the city of Detroit. Guy did an amazing business, and he ran it all out of his back pocket. He could never take a vacation. He could never leave the building. Right? I mean, it was unbelievable. And I said, I will never, ever in my career run a company like that. My company will run whether I'm alive, whether I'm dead, whether I'm on vacation, regardless, this company will survive. And this is how I've built the foundation for my store.
Matt, back to you.
Well, I'm just thinking like it's a very human condition and I'm very guilty of it, that you point the fingers. If you're a tech, you're pointing the fingers at, we live in Minnesota, it's the Rust Belt, that's why this happened, or shop procedure, whatever. As a manager, owner, trying to adjust labor rates, improve your means to increase compensation by better tooling, you're pointing your finger down the street at the other shops. These ball and chains are holding me down. They're anchoring me down. And that's kind of suggesting that there's some sort of systemic impediment that most of us have contributed to. And while there might be some there's a lot of things within your business that is not because of the shop down the street. Your office being in disarray, that isn't their fault. Your lack of shop operating procedures, that's not their fault. Your shop not looking, being presentable, not having any organization, you not attending training, business training, becoming a student of business, that's not the shop down the street's fault. So if you were to take those challenges on and fix that stuff in-house, and you can assign whatever percentage that is to the total contribution to the success. That aside, you do those things, you may start to not care so much about what the other shops are doing, or at least you'd be in a much more credible position to point out this, unreasonable or unfair systemic impediments holding you down. But I think it's more the former than the latter.
Thanks for that, Matt. At Jasper Engines and Transmissions, quality and customer service is their number one goal, and we so appreciate Jasper for supporting this Town Hall Academy. Their associates take pride in their work, and it shows in the drivetrain products they produce. Their quality and customer service has kept them growing for over 76 years. Visit jasperengines.com. Guys, can I switch the tables just a little bit on you all? I would love to. Okay, we've basically established, some of the why and the what, but I'd love to talk about some how right now. And if we were going to get creative, and guys, you're established, you could look back and say we evolved into where we are. And I want to share that we don't expect that anyone who's listening who wants to take a lot of these ideas and start moving with it, you've got a long-term plan ahead of you. But some of the ideas on a compensation plan, agree with me or not, let's open some discussions. ASE certifications, efficiency, comebacks, tool allowance, training hours per year in their training resume, career steps from repair diagnostics, master specialist, salaries plus incentives, flat rates out. Let's talk about some of the elements we could build into a great compensation package.
So, I mean, when a tech says, I want to make this, we have a pretty defined plan that says, if you want to make $100,000 a year, this is what you need efficiency. This is how many hours of training we expect you to take. Everything you need to do to make that income that you want, if you hit these guidelines, you'll make that. And we lay it out there. And I've had interviews where somebody goes, well, I'm not going to do all that. Well, then you're not going to get paid what you want to get paid. Right. And that's pretty simple. I mean, our apprentices, we hire apprentices. I have 2 of them right now, and we're constantly hiring them. But we lay out a 2-year plan of what guidelines they need to hit to get the full journeyman tech and where they're going to get paid every 6 to 8 months of the process. And we lay it out. And if they hit these goals and guidelines, they get their next raise every 6 months. For these young millennials, And my whole staff is under 35, my entire organization, but they need to know where they're going to get their next bump, and that keeps them around. And then you can talk about, that's a whole different discussion, millennials, but I keep them around for a long time, and they stay within my organization forever. But you got to give them guidelines of where they're going to get to and how they're going to get there. And your experienced techs you bring in, they want the same thing. Look, if you're not going to commit to going to 5 weekends a year of training, you're not going to make the money you want. That's what it's going to take to keep you at the level you need. If you're not going to do these things, we can't get you there.
Who benefits besides the tech?
The
Hey,
shop,
Everybody
I mean,
does. The
everybody.
shop benefits, the customer benefits, the cars
Community.
benefit, the techs. Everybody benefits by the tech. The more educated your techs are, my God, man, the more efficient they are. Bill Hill
comebacks.
from Mighty Auto in Medina,
Good
Ohio.
old Bill. Yes, Bill.
I love that guy.
Yeah, I
Man,
know.
if you get the opportunity, go to his shop. He's a great dude.
Yeah.
But he requires, I think his number is 30 hours or 40 hours a year of training
I think
for
it's
every
40.
one of his employees.
We just stated 40 starting this year.
Good job. Yeah.
Good for you, Frank. So, Matt, when a tech going to walk into your place, would you ask that new hire that you're kind of actually looking for now, tell me about your plans over the next, say, 25 years?
I do. I try to get a feel for if they have a, short term, very, very short term, maybe 5-10 years, and then the long term plan. But I think it's up to businesses, people that employ people, to give employees the ability to make a 30-year plan. I don't know that that happens very often. I find it odd in Frank's case that his tech was so short-sighted, but there's a lot of others where there's really no other means to think about things because there isn't enough there to start thinking 30 years from now, thinking about retirement, thinking about the big purchases down the road, because their paychecks are maybe very erratic, based solely on production, which, somehow the techs get blamed and held accountable for very tightly, but there's so much more that goes into it. It's kind of lazy management. So I guess when I ask them that, it's also with the mindset here to try to do better and better about giving them a means to think 30 years from now, 20 years from now, 40 years from now.
And to that point, I've told my guys for a number of years, I want to do some sort of retirement plan for you. I'm just kind of struggling to figure it all out. I've got to learn. I've got to understand before I implement it. So we just started a 401k. Now, we've talked about it, and it was kind of like, oh, okay, no big reaction. So I really didn't expect much. And, so a little bit of selfishness. I need something for myself outside of what I'm already doing. So we get the guy here for the meeting, and I cannot believe how excited everybody is. How excited everybody is to have this opportunity. And we're doing a 3.5% match, which it blew my mind, right? And I wished I did it 5 years ago. And these are the little things that we have to do. I've noticed also that my responsibility to speak into the lives of the people around me is to help them to understand that your paycheck is part of the equation. What you do with it is the bigger part. Most of the time when they're running up to you saying, I'm not making enough money, what they're really saying is, I'm spending too much and I don't realize it and I need help. And I teach my guys, a written budget is your only way to knowing where your money's going before it's gone. And I'm working with one of my guys right now, and I said, here's an assignment for you. I printed a budget for him, a quick budget. I said, I want you and your wife to go over this. I want to know, why do you say you need another job? Why do you say you need to do this other work outside of working here? I don't understand. You're making pretty good money. And he came back Monday and said, yeah, we've got a few gaps in our budget. So it's not just giving them more money. It's speaking into their lives and helping them be better people.
Yeah, I like that. My fear with that is that the management owner needs to be very, very honest with themselves, which sucks. Usually when you're trying to be honest with yourself, you don't like the answers, you don't like the results. But I think that's hinges a lot on the management being very honest about what is the cost of living within a reasonable driving distance of the place of business. that, you know, I think my boss has been guilty of this, where he compares his income and his cost of living to mine. Well, he bought his house 30 years ago, much different than mine. Now, what he used to consider a fairly good amount of compensation, when reality hits, things had to change, right? So I agree with you 100% that, you know, you can keep throwing money at them, and if they spend unwisely, it really doesn't matter how much money you give them. But the basis of that is, per the cost of living in that area, they are making a good living.
But it doesn't matter how good a living you're earning if you don't keep what you're earning and you're not wise with it.
Yeah,
That's-
it
I
doesn't
mean,
matter. It doesn't matter how much you make; it's how much you keep of what you make. And honest to God, no one is teaching money these days. There are no money courses out there. You know, I'll give you a simple thing if you want to learn something. The Scouts, many years ago, I was an assistant scoutmaster, and it was a merit badge that you could actually get, and I taught it because they used to make fun of me. They said, yeah, if you're one of Keziah's kids, you're not going to get a merit badge, you're going to get a PhD in money, right? And I'm okay with that, because every one of my kids did really well. And I take I take my employees and I bring them aside and say, okay, let's talk about a budget. I mean, you're spot on for doing that, because no one understands money today. And I think somebody has to get back into teaching it. Most of them don't even know how to balance a checkbook, for God's sake.
Yeah, true. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, we, you know, and some of it too. I mean, obviously the 401k is big. We do 70% medical and dental, 4% 401k. But a lot of what Frank's talking about and what Jerry even mentioned, instead of quarterly reviews, we've gone to a coaching process.
Mhm.
And that coaching process, they call it catalytic coaching. It's not used in automotive as much as used in every other field in the country. But we use that process to get to know what the employee has. And as long as the employee's goals align with the company goals, and if their complaint is, I'm not making enough money, then we really look at it and say, okay, does it make sense to pay for a Dave Ramsey class? Because if that helps the employee reach his goals, that aligns with the company goals. So we'll pay for that class. It's a tricky slope to educate them on their own finances as a owner or manager.
Yeah.
To me, that's crossing some boundaries and a tricky slope.
But
I
even-
will happily pay for them to take a financial class, because that aligns with company goals and makes them a more productive, happy employee.
But
Yeah,
even
and
a Dave Ramsey class, he's going to tell you, depending on, you know, it's relative, I know, but if you're talking about you just don't make enough money to live in that area, then you have to find more money. Get a second job's one of them, right? Pizza delivery to
Yep.
supplement. Now, a lot of that's to try to get out of debt, but the reality is if you're not making enough to live, something has to go up. And we're already talking about, for the most part in this industry, we're undercompensating our talent.
So I tell you what I just got out of this, and you know, of course, I'm taking notes, right? Part of my 40 hours of technician and employee training will now include X number of hours of financial training. Why not? It's
Yeah.
just be part of, you know, teaching financial responsibility. And I think once people learn that as a core value, it makes them more responsible, not just in their own finances, but in the way they treat other people's property as well.
I'm going to do a Tunnel Academy on supporting our employees, our people, with a financial management, if you will, Dave Ramsey-esque. And I don't have that scheduled, I don't believe, but now I will move it up the chart now that I'm hearing from you all. And Frank, did you say you're teaching Dave Ramsey stuff, or are you passing his book out? What are you doing?
I do facilitate about one class a year for Dave Ramsey. We just finished one in April. And
Okay.
our biggest class yet, 35 people at our church. Changes lives, you know.
Well, maybe you need to be on that show.
You have my number. I'll be
I
more
know I
than happy.
do.
I'm committing
So-
now to be on the show.
Thank you. Let's continue to think about, you know, personal time off. I think we talked about healthcare, paid ASE tests, paid training. That's all part of the compensation package. That's how you literally, I'll bet you that the average shop who doesn't really stop to think about it, it's got a heck of a pay package for some of their people. even though, they may look at the paycheck and say it's not enough, but the investment that you're making in them, that's what this whole show is about. And so the invisible paycheck, Seth, do you cover everything in that?
Yeah, we do. In our software that we use, so all our employees are onboarded through our custom software, and when they type in all their choices, it shows them their total compensation plan with benefits, with 401k, with medical, dental, and so it'll show them their total compensation package, and that's a huge eye opener.
But are
And
you
it's been big.
including, but Seth, are you going to that software and saying, listen, I paid for the ASE test, I paid for this training. Are you adding that to it?
Yes, yeah, and on the back end,
Okay.
well, my district manager does. I don't. I delegate
no.
that stuff out. But
No, I
yes,
get it.
somebody does.
Oh, I get it. Wow. Good stuff. Thank you.
Hey, can I hit on something Matt kind of said a couple times, and I don't know that we really addressed it, right? So when I was back east in New York before I came out here, I lived an hour outside of New York City, and home ownership was absolutely out of the question for anybody that lived there. And I think that, and I'm seeing some of those trends now in Las Vegas where, the median price of a home might be $2 or $225, but a decent house is $350, $375. I think we need to create an environment. If the people who live here can afford our services, then the people who work here should be able to afford to live here. So we really have to be sensitive to that. And listen, that's the price for admission. What are you going to do? I started wrenching on cars at $5 an hour plus 10% on whatever parts I sold. Granted, that was when we used to start cars like this, but.
Thanks for bringing that up, Frank. I think that was, Matt, your driving idea was if you sat down and found out from your people, so what are your plans? Hey, we want to buy a house. Okay, great. Based on what they're earning, because, you've been around the horn a little bit, what they could afford. And you have to stop to the plate, just like you said, Frank, and give the kind of wage so that the person could actually live in the community you'd love them to live in, buy the food based on what the cost of living is there. Okay.
And we're really putting over Dave Ramsey, but he would be one to say that your house payment should be no more than 25% of your wages.
Yep.
Maybe that's combined or whatever, but if it's a single person.
25% of take home, right, Frank?
Yes, sir. Yep.
Hey, definitely got to look. You definitely got to look at what you have to pay in your area. I mean, I got a 21-year-old advisor just bought his first house. I mean, my guys are buying houses early.
Good.
I mean, we pay them more than enough to live in our community and have a 15 or 20-minute commute to the office.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Seth, how are you sitting down and coming to terms with the fact that you have a great pay program and you're getting value for it? You would never let someone not earn their keep. Am I right?
Yeah, I mean, they're going to have to earn their keep. There's guidelines and structure, and we do performance-based pay, but we do have a base salary for technicians and advisors. So the techs, even if there's no work, they're getting paid. That's huge to techs. But yes, you got to get value for what you're spending, but you also have to pay people appropriately, and they stay for longer because of that. The other thing is the latest number I saw, and I can't quote you where I saw it because I'm drawing a blank on where it was, but it's about 33% of the person's salary that you're replacing that it costs to retrain somebody in any organization.
Wow.
So reality is you lose a tech making 80 grand a year, it's going to cost you 33% more to replace that technician. It's a huge number.
I recently heard that it's an entire year's salary to replace someone. And, you start adding the lost work and the production and all that stuff together. And if you really wanted to get deep in a yellow pad, you could probably figure that out. Hey, in addition to the strict quality remanufacturing steps they take at Jasper Engines and Transmissions, they can actually improve a drivetrain's components' original design so that it runs longer and better than when it was new. Check out their featured engine and transmission pages at jasperengines.com. Thanks again to Jasper for supporting the Town Hall Academy. Well, guys, I think there were some really cool takeaways here. Frank, you took a lot of notes too. I always love it when you come on, and every time and I think the audience needs to understand this. I get emails from our guests and say, "Man, I learned just as much as I was given." So we always appreciate that. It's our 120th week of doing this, and wow, it's great. So let's go around the room. Let's nail something here, guys. Anything you haven't told us or anything. Here's the point: how can we provide our technicians a $100,000 yearly package? Speak to the shop owner that feels that it's too big of an uphill battle and they actually can't do it. Jerry, let me start with you.
All right, Frank. Thank you, Carm. So I would go back to Frank and just verify this. When you raised your labor rate on 24-year-old cars to $190 an hour, who was the one who complained the most? Probably the service advisor, right?
Nobody did. And I could see a little bit of fear in one of their eyes, but the guys were like, everybody was in agreement. This is hard. It's costing us a lot of time and effort. We're not profitable on these cars is basically what it came down to. And honestly, my guys are really good at not freaking out at a price increase.
Excellent. Very good. I would like that to be the takeaway for every listener on the show. Raise your labor rates today. Start today. Don't wait to the first of the month. Start today. The only one who's going to flinch is the owner or the guy that's changing it in the computer. All right. First of all, you have to be able to know what your cost is. You have to be able to run a profitable business. We've said this on this show repeatedly. You have to know what your cost is and what your techs want to make, and you've got to be able to charge accordingly. If not, you really need to reevaluate what you're doing in the area you're at. You need to evaluate whether or not your business is strong enough, right? But either way, if you're not joining some group, if you're not getting some coaching, if you're not, if you're staying independent, unfortunately, you're hurting the rest of the industry. And so I suggest that everybody find some group, some organization, and I'm not blowing smoke for anybody, right? But get in there, get involved, learn what's going on in the rest of the world, right? The average shop does $350,000 a year. The owner nets $19,000 or $20,000. I wouldn't answer the phones for $20 grand a year. How do you pay your people? No, are you kidding me? I pay 5 times that in property taxes every year. So, no, not interested. Raise your prices, make a decent living, pay your people a decent living, and charge for what you're worth.
Thank you, Preacher Jerry.
Sorry.
Matthew.
I think it's initially stop worrying about what everyone else is doing. Take care of what you can at home or in your business. Fix what needs to be fixed, what's in your control first.
Yep.
And, the other thing is that I kind of have a fear that the people that need to be watching this episode and just Remarkable Results podcast in general aren't. That even if there's 1,000 people watching us on Facebook right now, that's like 20 shops per state. It's nothing. And the ones that need to be watching aren't. And I suspect most of the people watching right now that own shops have the $100,000 or $100K a year tech already. Well, how do we expand this? How does this get to where it needs to go and make use of that saying or whatever, a rising tide lifts all boats? We got to get the rest of them involved to raise this up. Otherwise, it's a lot of us struggling to try to raise that up and force everyone else to follow us because hopefully their techs jump ship. But they really aren't. When the techs are jumping ship, they're jumping off the freaking auto repair boat and doing something else entirely.
Thank you, Matt. So this was all of the really high-level secret sauce here today, guys, that we never want to share with anyone. I've done over 500 interviews, and the successful guys, Jerry, and I'm going to land right in your lap, they've all had coaches because they finally said, enough of this. I've got to become more successful. I've got to earn more money myself. One of the coaches, I love some of their opening statements, as I said. So when you sit down with a new client, what do you say? got any plans to send your kids to college? Boom, hits him upside the head and says, yeah, of course. Well, how are you going to do it making that kind of money? And ultimately, when that starts to happen and people make those changes and they realize that having a coach is really an important part of their world, they make these changes. So Matt, to your point, the people that are out there is the choir. We're preaching to the choir. So all I want to say to the choir, I don't care if you're listening 5 weeks from today on a podcast, if you're in the islands on vacation, and that does happen. I get emails about that. Okay, I'm on the beach listening to some shows. Great. The fact of the matter is you need to share that with some friends of yours, because there's so much business out there and there's so many people, to your point, Matt, that need to hear this. And the whole networking thing. The podcast has always been a private fly on the wall network for so many people. All they really need to do is do something about it. Seth, your last word.
I'll share the one thing I didn't share yet, and that's get out and see some other shops. I've been fortunate. I travel all over the country since I do training, and I've popped in on Frank unannounced once or twice, and he's been gracious enough to show me around. And going to see other shops opens your eyes to what they're doing and how they're doing it.
Oh, yeah.
And you will see amazing things. Just get out there and see some other shops. Mostly shop owners will show you around, and you'll see some shops that are doing some great things. I just had a shop owner stop by the other day. Anybody's welcome at my shop, my 2 shops anytime. Just give me a call so I know you're coming, even 5 or 10 minutes before, so I can meet you at one of the 2 locations. But anybody, anytime is always welcome. I'm happy to show you around and show you what we're doing.
Thank you, Seth. Appreciate you being here. Frank.
So what stops shop owners from moving forward normally is fear.
Yep.
FEAR, false evidence appearing real. And the best way to deal with that fear is usually just walk right up to it and walk right through it. And when you realize that once you've done it, it wasn't as bad as you thought it was going to be. So don't be afraid to make changes. If you raise your price and something happens and it goes wrong, turn it back, right? You can always go backwards. But it's not just about raising your price. Don't just raise your labor, raise your value. Give the motorist a reason to deal with your company at any price. And that's my philosophy, right? And we lost a job for $400. The lady swore up and down if she can get an alternator replaced on her car for $400 cheaper at the dealer. And I wasn't about to compromise. And I don't know what happened down there, but they brought another car in 2 weeks later and spent $2,700. So apparently whatever their perceived value was at the dealer didn't exactly pan out. So it's not about raising your labor. It's about understanding your value and we've got to get paid for what we're worth, guys. We're doing it. What we're doing in this industry is nobody can do it, right? We're a small group of the economy that drives literally people around. We need to be paid for what we're worth.
Thanks, Frank.
Yeah.
Well, great points. Thank you guys for being here. Seth Thorson, Eurotech Auto Service, LMV Bavarian, BMW Tech Support Company, New Brighton, Minnesota. Jerry Kazaya, the Auto Shop, Plano, Texas. Frank Scandura from Frank's European in Las Vegas, Nevada. Matt Fonslow, Shop Manager, Lead Diagnostician, Riverside Automotive, Red Wing, Minnesota. Thank you, guys. I appreciate this. There is no simple answer, but I think we hit the theme hard. How can we provide our technicians a $100,000 a year pay package? Thanks for bringing it home.